Recording. Let him in.
And we're back to the Fly by the Seat of Your Pants Winter Bird Festival. Hey, Bob, do you have that Fly by the Seat of Your Pants logo up there? Because, you know, we need to see that. We've just been fooling around with Jack Laws's logo. He says, you know what, we're just doing whatever we can to make something happen. And we're glad you're joining us. I hope you enjoyed that last one. And this time we have John Muir Laws, or Jack Laws, presenting again. And today it's going to be talking about birders and journals. So we're looking forward to that. But before we start, a couple of normal housekeeping things, and that is everybody's muted, and we may do the chat and the raise hand function later on in the program. If Jack's got some time and he wants to get some interaction with everybody, he'll let everybody know, and he'll unmute you, and you can chit chat with him on some questions later on. But right now, of course, the chat function is going to be turned off. By the way, we are recording all of these things, and we've got some of them ready to go up to our website. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow. We're working hard to get our act together and put some of these videos up so everybody can join them. By the way, all of these are free. You know that, right? But we are trying to raise some money so we can have a bird festival next year and develop the things that we need to develop. And to do that takes a few donations. So while you and all your friends are welcome to come on these free, if you are able and willing, you can drop a donation either in the mail, or you can go to the website. And right here, as you look at the screen, if you want to put something in the mail, the address there is in the bottom left. If you want to donate online, bottom right, morrowbaybirdfestival.org. Or if you have one of those newfangled phones and you can just scan those QR codes, you can make donations right there. I just want to say I'm impressed with the generosity of people who are trying to help us live to bird another day in an in-person festival next year. We've had people donate $500, $1,000. Can you believe that? I can't do $1,000. I can do 5, 10, 20. So do whatever you can. And we've got several $1,000s donated already. And you know what? We're going to have a great bird festival next year. And I'm looking forward to having you and everybody out with us together. Again, this is being recorded. So if you're eating a piece of chocolate pie, please turn off your video, because we don't necessarily want to have that recorded for everybody to see. Okay, so we're going to get started with Jack Laws. So Jack, as you know, is a scientist. He's an educator. He's an author. And his real goal in life is to help people forge a deeper and more personal connection with nature, specifically through keeping illustrated nature journals and understanding science. He's worked with this group and that group and the other group, and if you really care, you can go look it up someplace, but I want to give him the time to actually talk and teach us something. So Jack, I would like to learn some techniques and some routines to help me become a better birder and turn some of these skills into part of my everyday life. Can you help me with that?
Well, I'm glad you're here, because that's exactly what we're up to. Also want to just welcome everybody to this iteration of our Seat of the Pants Bird Festival. And again, if it is possible to make a donation to support the festival, they took a huge hit by canceling the event to keep everybody safe. They did everything they could to kind of keep it going, short of endangering our community. So just great respect to the festival team and the Morrow Coast Audubon Society for what they're doing to connect to this community and to keep us safe. And we I really want to encourage people to make a donation to keep them going. It's a really, really good project. I want to talk to you today about some strategies to get your own personal journaling process going. excuse me, the process of getting an idea out of your head and into a notebook is one of the most powerful things that we can do to help us think better on just about any subject. So, you know, people who, for instance, keep a diary. Sociologists and psychologists who study these sort of things, we find out those people are more emotionally intelligent than the rest of us. I don't keep a diary, which explains a lot. Your brain can only hold a little bit of information at any one time. I think, you know, around 7 or so different little ideas or thoughts, plus or minus 2. And the minute you start trying to kind of cram more in there, your brain will rebel and it will start kicking stuff out. And also, if you're trying to remember something, your ability to do, our human ability to multitask is absolutely terrible. And what we find that the more that we are multitasking, that is trying to do 2 separate things with our brains. Hey, that's 4. There we go. That our ability to do any one of those things plummets. So all you have to do is, you know, have somebody try to remember a short string of numbers, and their ability on all sorts of tasks, including social emotional stuff, like taking care of other people. We can't do it. So if you are out there birding and you notice something really interesting, you think, oh, that's so cool, I got to remember that. Well, you start doing other things and those ideas, they get swamped out. But what you do with the journal is you're out there, something neat happens and you get it out of here and into the journal, out of here and into the journal. And what happens when you do that is you're able to, on that day out in the field, collect so much more stuff for your brain to play with. And if writing is your go-to mode of recording information, your journal can be mostly writing. If drawing pictures is your go-to mode, your journal can be mostly drawing. But what I find works the best, I encourage people that start with whatever your sort of safety zone is, like whatever your comfort zone is. Like if your comfort zone is, you know, I really like, well, for me, I feel most comfortable drawing pictures. So I put in a bunch of pictures. But I know that if I also record part of my observations with words, I'm gonna be able to get so much more of the picture. Sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words. Sometimes a few words just do so much more and can flesh something out. So what you want to do is intentionally use both. The part of your brain that thinks with pictures is different than the part of your brain that thinks with words. So if you're intentionally getting both of those together, you have more resources to bring to bear on whatever you're looking at. So my major strategy is that I'm going out and I'm looking for beauty and wonder. So little micro moments of like, oh, wow, that's really weird. That's cool. So it doesn't have to be like a super mystery, but something interesting, something weird. So anything interesting goes into the journal, and anything that's beautiful goes in the journal. So that means birds, hey, they're interesting and they're beautiful. Birds, like bird. Birds are absolutely great. But I also might encourage people to not just restrict it to birds. You can also think, like, if you see something else that's cool going on, don't think like this is my journal for writing stuff about birds. Anything that is really kind of bringing you alive, capture that in the pages of your journal. That process of documenting it and describing it will slow you down and help you notice details that you otherwise would miss. And in addition to this, it's going to radically improve your memory of those sorts of things. In one form or another, we all are already kind of keeping a sort of using this process of getting things out of our head, but often not in our nature study. So you'll go out with your nature study binoculars, But in another kind of key part of your life, your day-to-day life, a lot of us are essentially using some of the tools of journaling. I'm going to go over to my gallery view so I can see people's faces. All right. And just by show of hands, raise your hand if there is a list in your kitchen of things you need to pick up the next time you're at the grocery store. All right. Interesting. Yep. A lot of us have that. A lot of us have that. Right. The reason that we have that is because it works. It works really well. Right. If you're trying to remember that, you know, gotta get salt. I need salt. I really need salt. When you sit down at the table, you go like, ooh, we forgot the salt. We need salt. But if you just walk into the grocery store and you don't have a list, it's hard to remember those things that you really needed to pick up. And if you're sort of sitting around home going like, salt, 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 gotta get salt, I cannot forget salt. It's so important for me to get salt, 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 salt and milk, 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 right? You're not gonna be able to effectively do anything else. And then it's like, oh, a bird, right? And then you forget your salt and your milk, but you're like checking out the bird. Oh, that's so cool. Like there's something I was supposed to get. I wonder what that was, right? So, but you put it down on the list, it works. So with your birding, it works the same way. So don't just do it for the milk, do it for the bird. So you notice something cool about the bird, put it down on paper. Notice another thing, put it down on paper. And what you can find is your ability to notice, your ability to remember, go boop, 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 right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump over to a document camera and we're going to go on, I'm right now sitting in a place, if you look out there, there's an oak woodland out there. And we're going to go for a little walk in that oak woodland and we're going to see what we spot. Right. And we're going to I'm going to look at how to use a nature journal to kind of record some of that information. Everybody's nature journaling is going to look different. That's one of the things that's great about kind of going out with a group of other people who are nature journaling together is that each person's kind of their angle on it is going to be slightly different. But you can take a look at what we do together here in this virtual birdie adventure and see what strategies you might incorporate into your own game. All right. So let's go there now. I've got my binoculars, got my sketchbook, and here we go. I'm going to use this pad of paper to sort of stand in for the journal that I usually bring with me. But you see, this is kind of how my journal pages look. And what you'll see is it's a combination of their sketches. There are some drawings on here, and anything that I am trying to think about, trying to get my brain to focus on, it all goes down in here. So when I was out in the field, I did everything except for this little bit here. So there were some dowitchers that were kind of out. One of those flew by. There's kind of a cool white stripe on its back. There was a lot of stuff going on with shovelers, and I got really into shovelers. And so I put down a lot of notes about shovelers. But one of the things that I wrote was, notice this little box here with a check mark in it. It says to do. I made myself a little check box here that says learn to tell long-billed dowitcher from short-billed dowitcher. Because I got out there and I realized there's some dowitchers out there. Are they long-billed or short-billed? So I got back and then added into my journal. This part here is stuff that I did from research later on. And as I was reading about telling the difference between long-billed and short-billed, I made little diagrams and notes in here. Oh, for some reason,
You lost you, Jack.
we lost my camera. That's interesting. There we go. Hey, we're back. Check my connections. All right. So yeah, if that happens again, do let me know. Not sure why that happened. But see, this was some notes about long-billed versus short-billed dowitchers, and the angle of the forehead and the angle of the eye the little stripe above the eye, is it curved or is it straight? Is the back straight or is the back a little bit swooped? You know, all those sorts of things. That's the sort of stuff that I would forget if I didn't write it down. So this is little kind of note taking for myself. So I can do stuff in the field, I can do other stuff back home, but it all goes down on the pages of this book. And that is one of the most powerful ways to learn. If I just read this article about the difference between long-billed and short-billed dowagers, by now I would have forgotten it all. But let's go out there in the field. Something that I recommend that people do as they start is to get something down on the page of your journal. The moment you have some information there, it's so much easier for more stuff to follow that page. And a great way of doing that is just at the start of what you're doing is to, I'm going to put in what I call metadata. And metadata is the location that you are, hold on a second. That is an indoor cat. Yes, an indoor cat. This cat never goes outside, and there it went. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the date, location, and weather. So today is January the 15th. And you can do this in big bubble letters if you want to. Or you can just write a little note down on the bottom of the page. But sometimes, if the reason it's kind of neat sometimes to do this, oh, that ended up being like a J. One reason why it's kind of neat to kind of do it in a playful way is it just kind of puts some marks on the page. And this is 2020. And I'm at the Santa Lucia Preserve. I'm dyslexic, so very often the spelling will come out interestingly on my own pages. It's an overcast day. I'm going to draw a little cloud kind of sticking out here. And just write overcast. All right. I now have, and it is, I'm going to start, it's about 1 o'clock. So you see what I've done is I've essentially date stamped and georeferenced my page. All the rest of the information that comes down on this page from this point on is going to then be data. Like some notes about birds are just some note about birds. Oh, that's right. Somebody pointed out it's not 2020. It's fun being dyslexic. I actually have a card in my wallet that has my my telephone number on it in case I forget. We can put in a 2 there. So we're not time traveling here today. So it is with modified time. So what I'm going to do now is anything that I observe, I'm going to kind of get it down on the page. And because of this, again, it's not just notes about birds, it's data, because it's date stamped and georeferenced. The other big thing that this does is makes this journal page less intimidating. One of the hardest things to face when you open up your journal is this big blank page. But if you get something down on it, like a little anchor, that really helps you do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So you walk along and then you look up ahead and there is you see sort of a flash of blue and sneak over to that little clearing, and there is a scrub jay under the trees. So what I do is I start looking at the scrub jay, and I will say to myself, all right, what do I notice here about this thing? And I will say out loud all the details that I see. I'll say like, okay, it's holding its tail up kind of high as it bounces around on the ground. And then the tail comes down. So it was bouncing around with its tail up, and then that tail came down. And then, it's got, okay, it's getting it's got an acorn. Yes, that's an acorn. It's got an acorn in its bill, and it's hopping around. It has an acorn in its bill, and it's bouncing, and it just put the acorn down. I thought it was going to bury it, but what went on with that? So that's weird. So I just noticed something that is strange. There's actually a scrub jay out here, and it's got an acorn, and it picked up an acorn, and it put its acorn down. So what I do is I'm going to take some notes about that. I could write down scrub jay found acorn, bounced around with it a couple of hops, and then put it down. Can it tell like this was a bad acorn, or what's going on with my scrub jay? Another way of doing that is I'm going to draw a little sketch of it. So since this is being a cooperative bird, I'm going to make a little sketch. And often what I'll do is I'll start with just sort of the line along the back of the bird. There's going to be my bird. It's going to have a big tail. It's going to have a head somewhere in here. I will often start one of my sketches with a light colored pencil. And then I will go over that with a darker pencil. But I can make these sort of, if I use a light colored pencil, I can make these sort of scribbly drawings that kind of give me the basic shape of what I'm doing. All right, so it was bouncing around. Actually, let's draw a little, there's a little jay over here, and I want to show that it's going kind of bounce, bounce, bounce along the ground. And then I'm going to add in some written notes. I'm going to write that it bounced along with an acorn, and that is from a coast live oak. And dropped it. So was this a bad acorn? Can they tell somehow? I don't know. See, it's neat. When you look for the little things that you didn't expect, these little micro surprises are really, really fun. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of flesh out my sketch here. The jay is actually now flown up to a little branch and is just sitting up there. So actually I can take advantage of the fact that it is now up on that branch, and we'll just sort of make a little, I'm going to do sort of the angle on the back of the jay. It's got a head that is up like that. And its tail sticks straight down. That's something my dad always would point out to me, how the jay tails always seem to be kind of just really pointing down. Very kind of vertical posture on a jay that you get. So let me just put a little bit more into this. So it's got a white eyebrow. I'm going to just make a few kind of quick doodles on this. There's dark on its cheek. There's white above its eye. There's a big white throat with a little bit of a collar. There's blue on its back. There is kind of a gray back, gray brown. This part's blue. This part is white. This is dingy. So I can add little color notes right on top of my jay. And you'd think that would, like, oh no, you're going to mess up a drawing or something, but it ends up looking really cool having all of your notes right there on top there. So here's my little Jay's eyeball. And tomorrow we'll be doing a little class that will be all about kind of drawing birds and how to draw them in the field a little bit more quickly. And we'll be giving you a lot of those little hints. But learning to draw birds is something that you can do. And it's really fun. It's a great addition to your birding, just like becoming a photographer. That process will kind of slow you down and help you notice things about the birds that you otherwise wouldn't have seen. And let's see, here's the tail. So let's start a tail up. I'll often sometimes also say to myself, like, are there things that I'm noticing out here that aren't recorded? Are there things that I am seeing that aren't recorded here? This was blue, this was blue. For little color codes, what I often do is I'll put in the first and the last letter of a color, unless it's yellow or white or red. Those I just use one letter. But for instance, if I put BL, the first two letters for blue, I might confuse that with black. If I put GR, that could be green or gray. But if you put the first and the last letter in, then what happens is, if you have the first and the last letter, then you'll be able to read your notes a little bit more carefully. So here's this little hopper. That it hops. I'm going to draw the acorn down here. And then I'm going to draw it flying away without its little acorn. So essentially I'm doing kind of a show and tell thing here. I am going to show with my pictures. I am going to tell. You need a longer tail, don't you? Yes, you do. That's better. If you use those both together, that makes a big difference. Let's play with this little one that is kind of perched up here. Whatever pose the birds give you, you can make, oh, it just turned its head towards me, right? So from the front, when it turns its head towards me, there's sort of this beaky area. And then I could really kind of get the sense of this big kind of white throat. It's dark on top, blue. Don't have to draw a whole other bird, but I might just kind of come up here. Here is so from the front, that was kind of neat. I kind of really got this sense of this, the real contrasty. The throat is much whiter than there's more contrast with that throat and that belly than I thought there was. So maybe I could really get that in this picture here. With a dark cheek. As I sketch, something that's really wonderful about this process is that it gets me to look back again and again at the bird. And when I do that, I time and time again discover that there were things that I thought I knew about scrub jays or whatever bird I'm looking at that are wrong. And it's the idea I'm going to update my understanding of it based on the evidence that I have, based on looking at the bird. So for instance, today I'm realizing that the throat is more pale in comparison to the belly than I thought. Right, this belly is more, so just a little bit of a more of a grayish wash, more sort of a browny grayish, right? That's interesting to me. And so what I've done, it's not a super big thing, but I have slightly updated my understanding of what the J looks like by looking at this bird. And that's incredibly powerful. If you start keeping a journal and you have some sketches and things in it, adding some color in is a ton of fun. So you can either use a small set of colored pencils, and that's probably the easiest way to start. Another way of doing that is with watercolor. But watercolor, there's a little bit more of a learning curve. So I don't really recommend that people start with watercolor. But later on, when you get more comfortable with it, it ends up being a really fast way of getting information from the bird onto that piece of paper. You are going to make mistakes. There are going to be parts of your drawing that aren't like a field guide. And that's absolutely to be expected. That's totally to be expected. And it's okay. And when that happens, you may not notice. And so it doesn't make any difference. But if you do later on realize like, oh, that wasn't a kind of an accurate thing, that's okay. This is just, you're out there with the birds and you're doing your best to see, to observe, to learn. If you come away from this experience with some little new thing, there's something that you now understand about the J that you didn't before, something that you noticed that you otherwise that you haven't seen on your other on your other hikes and rambles. That's a really, really good thing. That's a really, really good thing. And so you constantly look for these opportunities to update your priors, to update what you thought was going on with sort of refresh that in the well of what the bird is really doing. If I'm not having to sketch something, I don't look at it as carefully. But if I have to make a little drawing, then, or put down notes about something, then I will pay a completely different level of attention. I think I'm going to put a little bit of dusky underneath. That's too dark. Right? Yeah, it does have a darker belly, but not that dark. So that wasn't done on purpose. That's a mistake, right? So I'm just gonna make a little note. Not that dark. Not that dark. But how dark? How dark? Well, let's try to get a little bit more water on the brush. Maybe, yeah, like that. So don't be afraid of making a mistake. The mistakes, each mistake in this context is an opportunity for learning. So big question here today is how are, I know that scrub jays, they're responsible for burying all the acorns in the forest. They're essentially, they're planting all the oak trees out there. How are, so the California scrub jay, right? It's our California scrub jay. So I'm going to just put in California CSJ. Hey, how are California scrub jays selecting acorns? Right. Can they tell a bad one? Just sitting there. Is it watching me? I wonder if there's sort of like a Heisenberg uncertainty principle thing going on here. I've kind of come out to look at the jays, and the jays is this changing its behavior in response to me running around here? Oh, actually there's a second jay. So there's, I'm going to write here, there's a second jay. This one isn't chasing it away or anything. I wonder if there's a relationship between second jay within, we're about 10 meters apart. Are they a pair? Right? I wonder if they're a pair. I wonder if our California scrub jay monogamous? When do they pair? So you see, I noticed one thing kind of cool, and then that led to another question, that led to another question. And by putting all this down on my piece of paper, I've got my curiosity, my curiosity gets amplified. If I weren't journaling here, I would just kind of like, oh, I saw two jays. But this process really kind of slows me down. It kind of gets me thinking about what are they doing, their behaviors, their appearance. And I'm able then to change my mind as the jays start to show me new little things, new bits of evidence. The answer is to all the questions is there in the bird. And what we have to do is to learn to see in a way that lets us unpack those mysteries. So this is kind of a quick little glimpse into what nature journaling can look like. For somebody that is, again, more of a visual person, there probably will be more pictures. For somebody who likes words better, it's going to be more words. But the process is incredibly useful for just helping me take my observation and journaling just to the next highest level. Let's see here. Now, let me see here. I'm going to bounce over to this screen. FaceTime here. There I am. Hi, it's me. So what I would like to do is just I'll do a little bit of more kind of journaling with this little scrub jay in a moment. But what I'd like to do is at this point, just kind of to connect with you. If you have a question about this process, I want to invite you to either write that into the chat if you don't feel comfortable asking it in front of other people. Or if you would like to, you can also use the raise hand function. And with the raise hand function, I will see that you've got a question. And what I can do is, if you turn on your screen, I can bring you on live, and you can ask a question about this process. So a couple of interesting questions have come in, and then I will bounce over to Mary. But first the question is, what am I using for the watercolor? I have a little watercolor kit that I carry with me in the field. And so these are sort of dry watercolors. So I squeeze them in from tubes and then just let them dry. The brush that I'm using has water inside its handle. And that way I don't have to have as many tools with my hands when I'm out in the field. So part of what I do is kind of make my sketching system portable and easy to use in the field. So I have the tools that I use for that are, I have a palette. I have an old sock on my wrist. And I also have this water brush. It's a Pentel water brush. The brand that I recommend is the Pentel Aquash water brush, the large size point. And if you forget that, I do sell those on my website, but you can also find them in other places. So it's a very useful kind of brush. Because I live in California, my watercolor tends to dry more quickly. If you're in a super humid environment, watercolor takes a ton of time to dry. And then that's another reason to go for colored pencils. But if your environment isn't too humid, you can find that you can put the watercolor down, and because I'm not using, this brush doesn't put out big puddles of water, it dries quickly enough for me to be able to kind of paint and then make my way on down the trail. One other question is, what do you do if the birds are not being cooperative? So here in this example, I've got this scrub jay that is just sort of hanging out, going like, hey, I'm a scrub jay. But sometimes, you're walking down the trail and there's a little bird, there's a little thing that just goes zoop across your field of view. What on earth can you possibly, how could you do that? I do not have a photographic memory. So I can carry a couple of ideas in my head for a matter of seconds, and then that image starts to fade. So what I do is I look at the bird and I talk out loud what I see, and then whatever I say sticks in my head longer. If I don't say it, very often I find that I look down at my paper and my brain is kind of gone blank. If however the bird is not being cooperative at all, right? There's a little brown thing. Then what I can do is, write, white-crowned sparrow, saw 4, just sort of the way which we normally do. That you can kind of just say, like, I saw this bird, or there was a little brown flash that went across the trail. You could write, little brown flash flew across the trail. I have no idea what it is. But if you can't see it, don't expect yourself to kind of have some kind of magical birder eyes. However, the longer you stick around, and are still, the birds around you will become more still, calm, and quiet. And they kind of get used to you being there. So something that's neat about this process is, because the journaling gets you to be still, the birds will actually be more cooperative. When you first walk out into the forest or to the edge of the clearing, think of like that scene in Bambi where man has come to the forest, where all the birds are flying away. And essentially there's this bubble of disturbance that you carry around with you. And everywhere you go, this bubble is preceding you. The more that you are still and quiet, the more that this bubble starts to shrink and to shrink and to shrink. And the animals start to come out at the periphery of it. And that's the power of, one of the powers of journaling, is that it gets you to be still and quiet. And then you let the animals come to you. I'm going to bounce over to Mary and then to Laura.
Jack, we're getting close on time too.
Oh, how did that happen? Mary, you can now unmute, and I'm going to add you into my spotlight. Hey, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Jack. Quickly, my question is, how would you document in your journal bird language? I know Melinda Nakagawa has this little shorthand way.
Yes,
doing
that's
it that
great.
I adopted. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, let me bounce over to the page. And I've got a couple of videos on my website up specifically about this. So if you go to johnmuirlaws.com, type in birdsong into the search bar, and a couple of videos will come up on that. So if, let's say my J is going, yeah, 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 right? Yeah, yeah, right? What I do is, as I listen to the bird, I close my eyes and I listen, and I get my hand to do whatever the bird is doing. I will compose in the air. So if it's a bird that's going, dee doo 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 doo, I'll be going, and then singing out loud, bee doo boo doo boop. I will try to repeat it back to it. Like it'll sing, I'll sing. So it'll go, bee doo boo doo boop, and then I'll go, bee doo boo doo boop, bee doo boop. So my hand is moving. I'm trying to mimic it with my terrible bird singing voice. I do not have a complex larynx, right? So then we'll use this beetle boodle boop as our example here. Check this out. What I do is I then, on my piece of paper, I go bee doop boo doll boop, and then I go bee do boo dole boop.
Lost your camera.
One part of that is louder. Oops, I lost my screen again. That's so weird. What's up with that? Look, see, there's my beetle doodle boop. All right, so there's my beetle doodle boop, and then I can write that this is low pitched. And it comes from dense shrubs, right? And so I've got my drawing of it, my words put to it, a description of it. Is it musical? This is musical. It might be sort of mechanical. There's that
camera again,
right? So I will put in, whatever kind of description I think is appropriate for it, including where I'm hearing that noise from. So I have my drawing of it, and then it also helps to name that song, right? So for instance, I might call this, if like, let's say the boop is really prominent in it, I might just call this the boop. Right, so here's boop. So name your song, and then the next time you're walking along and you hear boop, you'll go, oh, there's boop, right? So you don't have a bird name for it yet, right? But you've named it, and because you name it, it helps this noise stand out from the acoustic environment, from everything else that is there. And that would be how I would transcribe. I'm afraid we don't have time for that other song, I mean, that other question, but I hope that that was useful. On johnmuirlaws.com, there are hours and hours and hours, more than 100 hours of tutorials and resources for folks to use. There's no paywall, it's all free. I would particularly suggest checking out the blog archives for a list of all the tutorials. But give this a try, and I think you'll find it really enhances your birding. Chris.
Hey, Jack, this is Chris again. I really enjoyed that, and I didn't quite get enough. Would it be possible for you to come back tomorrow and maybe do a couple hours straight, like from, I don't know, from like 3 to 4 and 4 to 5?
You know, that's an interesting thought. You know, looking at my calendar, it's weird that you should say that because I'm free exactly then. So in the next time we meet, what I'm going to be doing is not so much kind of looking at how I kind of take that observation and kind of paste them together to kind of record an experience in my journal of behavior and these sorts of things. I'm going to be looking at, all right, let's talk nuts and bolts about, like, you want to draw a bird. What's the first line that you put down on the paper? It's moving around. How do you handle that? Right? How can you get these quick bird shapes down on your piece of paper? And so yeah, let's do exactly that, Chris. That sounds like fun to me.
Do you have any homework? One thing for me to do between now and tomorrow at 3.
Yes, I do. I'm going to suggest that you probably have something. Most people have piles of little journals sitting around their house. What I want you to do is to choose one of them that is going to be your journal going forward for this next little period of time, as large as you will realistically bring with you into the field. You get too large, and then you just leave it at home. Too small, it actually cramps your thinking. It cramps your thinking. And so what you want to do is to go as large as you'd realistically bring with you, and write in the front of it, if lost, please contact, and then write your contact information. And that's the critical starter for getting started with your own journaling process. So find the little book. And again, there probably is one, or you don't need to run out to a store for this, because most of us have like taken that little class there, somebody gives them this little book. You've got a bunch of these things sitting around because you thought like, oh, at some point, I think I might want to do journaling, right?
I got 10 of those, and I'm going to grab one, and I'm going to have it ready tomorrow at 3.
Excellent. I will look forward to seeing you there.
Great. Thanks, Jack. I really, really appreciate your expertise and your willingness to come on and teach all of us. It's great. We're going to close this show down in just a couple minutes, but we've got several great things coming up. The next thing up at 2 o'clock, top of the hour, is Norm Pillsbury, and he's going to be talking about bird recording, and that should be really fascinating. So we talked about recording with pen and paper and maybe watercolors right now, but how about recording with my iPhone? You know, how can I take that to the next level? So Norm is going to be with us in the next hour. Following him will be Tom and Peggy, and they're going to be talking about owl boxes, the why, how, when, where of building an owl box. Hey, guess what? You want an owl box, but you're not handy, you don't want to build one. We're going to auction one off. We've never done this before, but we're going to auction off an owl box at the, let's see, what hour is that? That's the 3 o'clock hour. After that, we have a double header with Benjamin Jacob Schwartz. He's going to be talking about feathers to flight, and he's going to be talking about the marvelous hummingbird. So can't wait for him. He's a young man full of zip and zing, and he's going to share with us tonight from 4 to 5 and from 5 to 6. And then if you have anything to do with any bird festival anywhere, or you're just a tech-minded person or want to know how in the world are we going to run a bird festival again if there's some other COVID variant next year, our final hour tonight is going to be how to run a bird festival, the new way to do it, by our own Bob Revell. So that's what's going on today. We're going to close this down. Donate if you can. Otherwise, we'll see you at the top of the hour which is only in a couple minutes. We're going to close it down so you have to come on in with the same numbers. All right, everybody. See you later.